Don't finish writing that prompt. I don't want to be in your AI movie, please.
I tried everything for my depression. Nothing worked.
Every day felt heavy. I felt trapped.
Then I tried Pupperman.
Every single video I just showed you is 100% AI generated with VO3.
Welcome to a non-existent car show. Let's see some opinions.
I mean, man, the acceleration is crazy. You look far, step on the pedal, and you are there.
I feel safe with him in an SUV, and it seems to be like the right type of car for him. Because you're worth it.
In this video, I'm going to go in depth on Google's VO3 and Kling 2.1 and show you how to recreate millions of dollars of ads and go insanely viral on social media.
I broke into a zoo to prove one man is enough to fight a gorilla.
But before we start, I want to show you some amazing clips that other people have created already in the last week to give you some inspiration into what is possible with this technology.
Bigfoot here. Check my breakfast.
An endless line built up in New York City. Let's ask the people, why are they standing in line?
The line is too long to see what is at the end, so I don't know why exactly am I standing in line.
I'm pretty confident it's the new iPhone. Sorry, the new PlayStation.
So, in the last week, I've been playing around a lot with Google's VO3, so much so that I actually got a mention from Google's Gemini app on X. I was able to get this specific video of cutting a felt kiwi over 500,000 views on Instagram. I was able to get this car crash to go viral on Twitter with over 600,000 views. And I was able to get decent amount of momentum on YouTube Shorts with this piece of content. So, I've come up with 3 different categories of really great implementations of VO3. The first one is viral clips. So that consists of content that would go viral on social media in short form. So we're talking about TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, that type of stuff. Google VO3 is really good at engagement baiting and creating little clips that people would really like. So a good example of that is the few ones I showed before. One of which would be the felt kiwi, the other one would be the car crashes, stuff that just catches your eyes but there's not a lot of substance to. The second one is filmmaking, and that's pretty straightforward, is that you can use this technology to make content that replicates something that you'd see in the movies. Now, it's a little bit hard to do character consistency for a long period of time, and you're working with 8 seconds, but it's definitely showing promising signs of doing storytelling through this medium. And then we have the third and final category, which is creating advertisements. So this can be in both forms. I've seen people already using VO3 videos on Facebook ads, and it helps a lot because you can iterate through tons of generations and generate things that catches people's eyes, and you can use today on Facebook ads, Google ads, you name it, if you already know how to do that. And then the other subcategory is highly produced commercial content.
By VEO3!
So, the post I have gotten the most inspiration from since the VO3 launch is this one by PJ Ace. So he claims to have previously worked on many pharmaceutical commercials, and obviously the industry is giant and the budgets are huge for these. He shows that it's genuinely possible already using Google's current version of VO3 to make a very convincing advertisement. So I want to play the video and then we can analyze it and also look into some of the stuff he's claimed in his last interview and apply that to VO3 right now and see what we can build.
I tried everything for my depression. Nothing worked.
Every day felt heavy. I felt trapped.
Then I tried Pupperman.
Our prescription helps your body secrete a special pheromone that attracts puppies.
I took the pill before bed, and when I woke up, there he was, the love of my life.
The pill does not target depression directly, but we've found that it's really difficult to be depressed when cute dogs show up at your doorstep.
I used to feel so empty, but now I feel joy and mild concern how a pee stain got on the ceiling.
My puppy listens twice as good as my ex-husband and only climbs into the lap of half as many of my friends.
He chewed up my Bible and pooped in my good chair. But I'm happy for the first time in years.
Looks like a rat, barks like a demon. But he saved my life.
I named him Earl. He follows me everywhere and farts in his sleep. Just like my first husband.
Pupramine, for when your therapist says, maybe you should get a dog.
So when I first saw that, I was a little bit skeptical, and there's a lot of reasons why, and most of that has to do with the consistency of VO3. So you probably saw all the clips that I've had in this video so far, and you wonder why they look so incredibly good. And the reality is, you just have to try over and over and over again. PJ claimed that every 8-second clip, because keep in mind, the constraints on VO3 is that every single clip you generate can only be 8 seconds long. So that's a pretty good amount of time for a shot, and you might think that was around a minute long, so he maybe generated 6 or 7 of these, but that is far from the case. He claims to spend over $500 worth of credits just for that video alone, and do about 30 to 40 takes for every single 8-second clip that he actually uses. So that means he's generating 30 times, and it takes minutes to do this, dollars to do it, etc., for every single clip. Now the importance of that is, everything that I've shown in this video so far is extremely cherry-picked. These are people that have created hundreds and hundreds of clips, most likely, and just taken the very best ones and outputted them. And I'll give you an example of that with this burger. I was trying to recreate a McDonald's burger commercial. So this first prompt, as you can see right here, extremely long. I actually had, I think it was either Claude or ChatGPT come up with this prompt, and it's talking about each 2 seconds, different things changing. It's just overall too complex for VO3. So you can see this is the result I came up with. It's pretty impressive, but it's not really usable as an ad because it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like all the burger ingredients and stuff is just wrong for that Big Mac. So we created this one here, and you can see if we read it, it basically talks about beef patties as the first thing. So it didn't really have that bottom bun. So I keep on iterating over and over again. I generate this again, and then here we have, this one is pretty good and pretty similar to the commercials, and it has more or less the Big Mac in the way that you would actually get it in the restaurant. But you can see there's still a lot of things that you could determine it's AI and not really like about it. So I keep trying, and sometimes if the concept is just too complicated, you see right there the cheese just randomly appears. The end part just cracks me up. Like the AI, it just is so funny when it comes up with big butt cuts. Like it just when it comes to text and stuff, it goes all over the place. So you can see that this is the reality of how it is generating. And keep in mind, when we go to the models, they decreased the cost from the first day when I filmed from 150 credits to 100. So it's a little bit hard to determine how much that costs based on them giving that discount half off on your trial. But then when you buy credits, I'm not sure which rate it's at. So you're basically paying $1 or $2 for every one of these generations. So you can see here, I've already spent over $10 and I didn't really get anything that was usable. I mean, this end part is pretty good. So there's a lot of a contrast. It's like you can be a hobbyist and you can spend $100 in a given day and be like, wow, or multiple $100 in a given day and be like, wow, I burned all this money for nothing. But then if you look at it from the other perspective, so I'll be popping over to this one that I created, and I'll turn the audio on. I think I already included it in this video. But this is a great example here of the type of shot that, sure, and this is one shot. I only did one specific shot for this, but you can tell recreating this as an advertiser would be hard would be super hard because you have all these paparazzi, all these people, the lighting, the venue. Like, this is a shot that would cost tens of thousands of dollars to produce in an advertisement, and Google did extremely well with this prompt. So here it is, and I'll dissect the prompt in a second, but I'll just play the video again.
Because you're worth it.
So I'm going to give us a little bit of context of how I got to this point. I was scrolling through Claude and asking it a few questions. I was asking it for ideas to replace expensive advertisements that were filmed in a traditional way, and it gave me a bunch of ideas and kind of what cost a lot of money in the real world, and that is, cinematic close-up shots of the product. For example, that burger. McDonald's probably has spent millions of dollars just dropping burgers with slow-mo cameras and doing all the effects that they would need for that, as well as it told me a lot about car commercials and how much those cost. And then I asked it for specifics of, some very expensive advertisements, and I was just going through it. The automotive commercials, that leads into one of the ones I'm going to show in a second. And then we have luxury brand campaigns, and then the Chanel No. 5 with Nicole Kidman, which was reportedly costed $33 million of a production budget. So I definitely had to look into that one. So then I scrolled to the bottom, and it told me what makes them expensive. Celebrity talent fees. Obviously, deepfaking a celebrity is probably illegal and something you shouldn't do. So that's really off the table. Location and permits and travel, that's a big one. You can basically make any location you want with Google VO3, so that's definitely intact. Special equipment, cranes, drones, stuff like that. Obviously, we could recreate all of this with AI extremely easily. Large crew sizes, 20 to 100 people. Just imagine everyone there getting paid a decent amount of money for showing up into the content. So that's a huge cost that you can definitely cut using AI. Multiple shooting days. Obviously, we're not even shooting at all, so everything's going to be completely free. Post-production visual effects. In general, you're probably going to actually want to do a lot of post-production on these clips, at least for now. Probably not in a few months when it gets really, really good. Music licensing. Obviously, that still applies. You can generate a lot of different audio content with AI. That may not be as recognizable from like a brand perspective, but it still is pretty good. So I just kind of went through the rabbit hole. I watched this Chanel advertisement, and then I saw this shot right here, and you can see there's the paparazzi, there's the tons of people on both sides, and you could tell that a shot like this definitely costs a lot of money. So my goal was to recreate that, and then here we have it. It's not as epic as the Chanel shot, for example. But you can see there's at least 50 people or so, and you have the hotel, you have the red carpet, all of that good stuff. And then in the ad, the woman doesn't say anything specifically, so I just put in another tagline, and that's just L'Oreal's one, just for a proof of concept and how you can take this idea and implement it into your own.
Because you're worth it.
And you can see this person is very celebrity-like, aesthetically pleasing, everything you'd want for an advertisement. Alright, so now let's analyze some of these prompts and see how they work. So this first one I took from PJ, and he actually explained how he did his pharmaceutical ad in a video, so I just screenshotted that, had it OCR'd, and this is ultimately the structure of his prompt. You can see it's pretty big. It's a big chunk of text right here. So the thing that you have to understand when it comes to prompting AI is the beginning of the prompt is the most important. It puts the highest weight to the very beginning to the lowest. So what you want to do, and the way he structured is pretty good, says a cinematic shot of Sarah, which is an arbitrary name that you're going to reference in the future, and then he put the parentheses and then some description. So the more description you put on the person, the more consistent it is going to be when you give that exact prompt for another shot later on. And that's definitely one of the hard parts when it comes to purely text to video translations, is your characters are going to look a little bit different, and that's why you pretty much only want to use them once or twice. And this is just a simple description so the AI can immediately render the person correctly. And then some of the action, sitting on a couch in a cluttered living room, looking at the camera, clutching a tissue. And now this is the important part that I found, and one of the parts that struggled with the most on VO is getting the people to say stuff consistently, because oftentimes you'll render these videos and they just won't say anything, or you'll have the caption on the bottom, which we did in this video, and the result for that is just you have to put it into editor and crop it out. It's just going to happen, and Google is probably going to need a few new version updates before they fix that type of problem. I'm not really sure if their training data is set on caption videos or something like that. But the most important line here is to have the character speak. So at the very end, it says, Sarah says, I tried everything for my depression, nothing works. And the only reason Sarah works is you have the name Sarah described previously. So that I definitely took from my iteration of it. And then he also includes the subject position, a pose, a phototype, wearing, environment. So you can add all these other variables, and you definitely want to do that after the main prompt, because if you do it in the beginning or you don't fully describe the main prompt, it might put too much emphasis on the pose and it won't actually do the shot that you want. So it's pretty important that you structure it in this way, and the most important part is obviously the beginning. So I decided to copy the beginning part of the prompt structure for the ad that I made, or the shot that I did with the celebrity. So I said a cinematic shot of Sarah, same name, doesn't really matter, you can put whatever name, and I changed the age and look of the character, and then I described with the sentence what was happening, and then I did camera zooms in, and it kind of cut this. The camera controls on VO3 are not great, so you can try, but it won't always do it. And turns around and stares into the camera, and then Sarah says, because you're worth it. So that part really came out well. And this is the entire prompt. I didn't add any of the other stuff. I tried doing it and I didn't really see a lot of benefit for it. But if you want a more controlled environment, the longer the prompt, the better. But this is a good framework. I think what's super important when it comes to prompting is not necessarily like there's one prompt that hacks VO3 or something like that. It's more so coming up with a creative idea for a shot and then describing it and then having it done. And if the result is not good, what you want to do is think of another idea for what you can recreate other than just getting tied to that one idea. And think of ideas that involve all those elements I was talking about before. But I would say you really want 2 or 3 sentences for these prompts. And I'll go into my second example in a second. So when Claude told us things that are expensive, oftentimes a car commercial came up. So this is a great example of something that I wanted to recreate. I just found this random Subaru commercial which effectively has dogs instead of humans in the car. And this was filmed 9 years ago, so it's definitely not AI. And let's just give it a tiny little play.
One moment while I search roof repair. Sure, I can call Ralph. Calling Ralph.
So you see, this content probably costed a lot of money to make because they had to get all the dogs and they had to probably film it many, many times because the dogs weren't doing what they were supposed to. And I was able to recreate this with one simple prompt right here. And there's 2 different versions. This version worked a lot better. And I would argue this would be a lot more viral and a lot better of a piece of content because the dogs are actually driving. I just noticed the legs right here. So not everything is perfect. But let me play this for you. So you see, we got a very similar shot of dogs in the Subaru car that you could use in a Subaru commercial if that's something you're making. However, the dogs are actually driving the car and the car is actually going. So that's a little bit more impressive. And then I have this other version that I generated here.
Love. It's what makes a Subaru a Subaru.
It's all over weird. This one is definitely not as usable. And I'll go into the prompts, the 2 prompts that created this. And this is where I say I highly recommend your prompt is basically 3 sentences and that you manually type it out exactly how you want it to happen. So this is just a cinematic shot of golden retriever driving Subaru. There are 3 other golden retrievers in the other seats. Cameras mounted on the windshield. The car is being driven in Los Angeles freeway. The dogs bark. So that's the description I gave it. Now I had Claude make a description, and what a lot of people do, sometimes this works, is they ask ChatGPT, Grok, Claude to make a prompt for a video generation or an image generation, and it always generates stuff that's way too big and too confusing, and the other AI doesn't interpret it properly, which is kind of funny because we're interfacing better with the AIs than the AIs are interfacing with themselves, at least for now. And it created this one. I mean, it created one that was like 10 times longer than this. I had to say simplify, 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 and then this is the version that it came out with. And my version is this first one I showed you, and then this is the AI version. And sometimes it just comes out to luck, but I recommend, in my personal experience, just writing out the prompt specifically yourself. So I hope these 3 examples really help you create $1 million ads using VO3. Obviously, you're going to be needing to do a lot of generations, but the one positive thing is the technology is moving so fast. I bet you in 6 months from now, the cost is going to be a quarter of what it is, and the outputs are going to be 10 times more consistent, if not better. So there's a lot to look forward to. And one other thing I want to say, which is quite obvious, the Google came out with this flow editor right here. My personal opinion on this is the interface looks a little bit cool, but realistically you have to download all these and put these into actual editing software. So if you want to use CapCut, whatever you're familiar with, I use mostly Adobe Premiere, and you have to do a lot of editing, post-editing to these. You're going to be spending a lot of time editing just the parts that are generated really good and cutting out all the other parts. You might only use 1 or 2 seconds from every 8-second shot. That's definitely something that everyone else is doing. So these are things to note. Nothing is going to be perfect on your first try, but like I showed you, those 2 shots alone, we're talking tens if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to get something like that orchestrated, and we generated it completely with AI. And one more thing I did want to shout out is Kling, and just today they released Kling 2.1 and 2.1 Master. Now this is another AI video generator, and honestly they were the best, I think, before Google VO3 came out. And going back to Kling, honestly it's hard to do when VO is so good, and it's so good with the audio and voices and stuff like that. It's not really possible yet on Kling. However, Kling does do very good visuals, and they are, in my opinion, the second best video creator as of right now. So just klingai.com. You have 2.1, you have 2.1 Master, so they're both new versions. And Kling, the nice thing, there's a few nice things about Kling. One, you can do different dimensions. VO is stuck in the landscape video only. And Kling definitely follows camera controls, I think, a little bit better, and it's also substantially cheaper. So the Master is about $1 per generation, so it's pretty similar to Google VO, but they also have Kling 2.1, which is actually less than, what was the last version? It was the last version was 2.0, and they only had the Master for that. So this is a newer version of Kling, so you don't have to go all the way back to 1.6, and this version only costs 30 to 50 cents per generation, so it's substantially cheaper than a lot of these new models that have been coming out. And I'll show you some demos. This is the cheaper version of the model. I just generated this really quickly. My Kling 2.1 Master ones are taking a really long time, so I'll just show you some other people's results on Twitter. You can see it can create really beautiful visuals, but it does not create audio like VO does. So that's one thing that's hard to get used to in not being able to cover. Here's another example. This is a good shot that, maybe a movie, but you could also repurpose something like this for an ad for a mobile game, especially if you tweaked it a little bit. So there's definitely a lot of potential with this technology too. Here's a version of someone applying makeup, and you can see the AI is just like the physics of the whole process is extremely realistic. So these things are getting scary good. And then here's one more, one that I thought was pretty good too. Anyways, it's been a little bit. I'm going to wrap this video up. If you made it to this far, make sure to follow my x.com/mentor, and then also join my Telegram group. Those are two great resources I have. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. I don't sell anything currently on my channel, so if you really want to support me, just go to follow me on X and my Telegram, and I'll see you guys later.